Evening. Welcome to the Events and Commemorations meeting. Today is September 16th. It's 5:30 p.m. Can we get a roll call, please, Ms. Swain?
Mrs. Cooper?
Here.
Mr. Capel?
Here.
Mr. Ayer? Here. 3 present. We have quorum.
Thank you. I am looking for a motion for the minutes from the August 19th meeting, please.
I'll make that motion.
I will second. Discussion? No? Roll call, please.
Mr. Capel?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Ayer?
Yes.
3 yeas. Minutes passed.
Okay. I am going to flip flop our new business and our old business this evening since we have a guest. Want to be able to get you in and get you out if you're welcome to stay, but that way your portion is done. So we're going to discuss the Big Nut Strut. If you wouldn't mind coming up to the podium, please introduce yourself. Tell us your name, your address, and what's going on with the Big Nut Strut this year. Looks like some changes.
Yep. So my name is Sarah Benedict. I'm the event director for the Big Nut Strut this year. I live here just north of Sunbury at 2464 Blaney Road. We love the Sunbury community. The Big Nut Strut, if you're not familiar, is a community-focused 5K 1-mile walk that benefits all Big Walnut Schools PTOs. So proceeds are distributed evenly amongst all of the different schools PTOs, all the way from the ELC all the way to the high school. This year we are moving it. We had previously had it at the pavilion behind GRE. Multiple issues with that location, being the biggest one being safety concerns of not being able to close that street off, cars coming in and out. It just became a little untenable last year with the amount of people we had. And when we're having children involved, safety has to be the number one priority regardless, right? So the new campus of the high school in PRE gives us a unique opportunity because it's such a big area itself. So much of this event can be on school property and not interrupt regular city business. So I think you guys might have the print off of the different race course options.
We do.
So the option we would prefer, of course, would be the one that went down Miller Drive. It would take a left on the Myers Drive and wrap around and head back to the school. There's another option that basically has runners essentially just loop and turn right back around on Myers Drive. That one becomes a little bit more complicated for runners and getting them going the right direction. But again, we can work with either one. So what we would be asking for is to have an officer parked right there at the corner of Miller and Myers Drive to close that off. Now, we would definitely want to keep Myers Drive going left towards, I'm sorry, I forget what that court name right there is. To make sure residents back there can still access and exit and things like that. And of course, like any event, in the case of emergency personnel, race stops, people can get back there. If people need to get in and out of their homes, we can make sure that that happens safely as well. Obviously, we're not going to force people to stay inside their homes during a race. But really, that neighborhood would really be affected. The 5K runners will take off about 2:15. So I imagine that neighborhood would be affected probably around the 2:30 to 3:15 timeframe is when that neighborhood would be affected. So we're trying to keep it as short of a time as possible to get that road back open for traffic, for residents and everything else. Any questions I can answer right now?
How do you vote on which option you're going to do?
Well, that would be up to you. If we can get approval for the.
I can talk about that. So this has gone to police and fire. And first of all, thank you for working with me and getting these maps and changed everyone. So option 1 is the preferred option for our emergency services. Chief Kovac will only approve this application if we're staying with option 1 because they block off Leastone Court. And we don't want to interrupt that. Chief Howard has come in as well and said that he's more comfortable with option 1 than option 2, and they gave the go-ahead on option 1. And services have already reached out, and he said the same thing. Option 1 would be ideal.
What is option 1? It's just going from PRE to Myers and then just turning around and coming back.
They will make a U-turn and back they go, yes.
And with this option, Myers Drive isn't closed down. It's
Right.
closed down.
It'll
just
stop right before the intersection. So it's still giving access to both neighborhoods,
okay.
sides of the neighborhood.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Everybody has given this approval a thumbs up, and I think she mentioned a majority of this does take place on
On
school
school.
grounds. They're just asking, I think it's a total of 740 feet of the road to be closed.
And it did look like you were, so then they're requesting a special duty officer.
And that's been passed along already, so they'll work.
They know how to
Duty
do
officer
that.
and police department will reach out to them and go.
Okay. Okay. Yep, I just want to make sure that was done. So there's a way of doing that that I'm not involved in, so just sure Amber knows to pass that on. Okay, well, good. This is exciting. I think this is gonna work out much better, not being on the public roads and through the Mills neighborhood back there like normal. I like that a good portion of this is on the school property. That's private roads back there and not really affecting the neighborhood really a lot at all. So this is coming up October 12th.
Yes. It's a Sunday afternoon. Yeah.
So do we need to vote on it? Is that what we need to do?
Not a vote, it's just an approval.
No.
Any questions from staff? Everything looks good from your end? Daryl?
Yeah, I was just gonna say for Molly though, because this is a new route, I do have it on the council agenda for tomorrow evening, just to make sure that they can understand kind of how, Miller Drive would be impacted. So essentially, we wouldn't take it to council unless the committee, endorsed the recommended change. So I don't think it's a formal vote, but again, just want to make sure that there's consensus of support among the committee.
It's fine.
Mhm.
That's-
Yep. And you've got, just for my sake, you've got 800 people expected attendance. Obviously, that's a big number. How many people are going to run in the 5K? Do you have any sense of that?
It's usually about half and half.
About half,
Because we've got a lot of parents and young kids, right? So they're typically doing the 1 mile with the strollers, etc. So probably around 400 to 500 5K runners.
Great. And then, yeah, so the first phase of this, all is happening on the school grounds. is what you're
Yes, the
saying.
1 milers will not leave school property. They
Yeah.
will go out, they will loop back. All will be right there. Actually, they won't even make a complete loop around the high school. They will turn at a certain point and head right back to the back. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, well, we will take this to the city council meeting tomorrow evening for the official approval and staff will be in contact.
Okay, perfect.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Now I'm gonna loop back up to the unfinished business where we have the event recap for the 4th of July and December Sizzle and Sound together. And it looks like we do have that in our packet.
So for the 4th of July, the overall event was a success with no major issues. The debrief is broken up into 3 different categories. So there's the pre-parade observations, during the parade, and the evening event. This year there were a few different changes. We restricted parking on both sides of East Cherry Street, which significantly improved visibility for the parade floats. And then additionally, since there were no vendors or activities on the square, that allowed us to open parking on East Granville Street. So it kind of evened out, but allowed more parking with East Granville being open. Some parents expressed that they appreciated the break in between the parade and the fireworks with not having anything on the square, just due to the heat and just a more relaxing day. The parade lasted about an hour from when the roads were closed until when they were reopened. Despite our efforts to maintain flow and remind participants to not stop, there were still gaps in the parade, which prompted people to, especially towards the end of the parade, to walk in between the floats in order to cross the street before the parade ends to kind of beat the traffic, which created a safety issue. Majority of the parade participants ended at the middle school. However, some of the larger groups and floats continued on State Route 37. Few of the sports teams would break off around Bauman Street, and the vehicles would either exit at East Street or around Bauman Street as well. There were some concerns regarding how candy and other items were distributed. In some cases, participants would drop the candy directly next to the float rather than tossing them out, which caused the children to run dangerously close to the vehicles. On the other hand, some participants were throwing the candy with excessive force right up there.
Yeah.
Just never happened, Melissa.
And then additionally, there were some items that were like toothbrushes that were being handed out that caused the parade, the float to stop, which then
Yeah.
created gaps, which I don't think you could really throw those, but
I saw that a lot with the popsicles, the ices, and I loved it as a guy out when it was way too hot because I got a couple of those myself. But quite a few floats handed them out, and every time it slowed everything down.
there was one instance. So I was on the corner of Columbus and Cherry, and there was about 20 people handing them out. And the float had already turned onto Cherry Street, and they were still handing them out on Columbus Street. And they realized like the float was getting away, so they just all started running up back towards the float. And then of course you have kids who are like, "Well, where's my popsicle? Like I want some." And
Then the float behind them.
Yeah.
It's still, you're still creating a gap.
I went up to one of them. I was like, "Just give me the handful. Just give me a bunch of the popsicles and just like distribute them that way." And I was like, "Yeah, it was." But of course, they're a big hit. But then they have them pre-opened, so you can't throw them as well. And
Mm-hmm.
even if they weren't, you probably wouldn't want to throw those as well. So there are some
Yeah.
discussions with that. Evening event, the bounce houses, those were a big hit. Bouncing Butterflies also brought a bunch of tables, and those were set up in the shade, which allowed people to stay longer. The fireworks show, we did have it temporarily paused due to people getting too close to the launch area. But other than that, there was no other issues in the evening as well. So it kind of summed up the 4th of July. There's more detail in the packet, but those are just kind of the highlights of it.
So maybe before we move on to Sizzle, just talk a little bit more about the 4th. So I think one of the things we have talked a little bit about is whether or not, the route may change a little bit. That was part of the reason to, pay very close attention to kind of the timing of the total parade. I think, my recollection is that we also probably had some of the number of, parade entries was down a little bit, I think, because of the Friday, the fact that it happened on a Friday. So the timing of kind of when it got through Cherry Street, when it ultimately got off of 37, could change a little bit depending upon the size. But, long story short, I think that, if the route did change and went straight down Columbus Street, we ended up with Cherry Street probably being State Route 37 would be, I think, closed about 1 hour versus about an hour and 15, an hour and 20 minutes. So you save 15 to 20 minutes by doing something like that. So that's just sort of one observation. Again, I don't think anybody's making a recommendation here. Just want to make sure we made that point pretty clear. And then, as Alyssa said, there was a lot of observation about what was happening at the end of the parade and how it dispersed. I would say that I was pleasantly surprised that most of them did return to the school. Like I said, there were some that were kind of splintering off before it got to the end of the parade. And clearly there was some confusion about when the parade ended because of some of those gaps that Alyssa referenced. But most of them did get back to the school. But what surprised me a little bit as I was observing on the back end is that, and maybe it shouldn't have been a surprise, is that once the entries get back to the school, they're ready to leave, right? Well, you got a parade finishing up on this side, and you maybe have, the parade not completely, stepping off on the other side. So we do have people that are trying to leave the school grounds, mostly from the backside, kind of, trying to get onto 37 off of that side road there, whatever that side road is called. So that got to be a little bit dangerous to kind of manage, but again, I mean, we were able to manage it, but I think it was just a little bit of a surprise. And then maybe the final thing I will say is that, and this happens every year, but so those people then that are waiting patiently on the school grounds for the parade to end, jump in line behind the end of the parade, and it starts to look like the parade is starting over again. And that's always been a little bit of a confusing point. I know that's not news to this group, but it does happen, so.
Yeah, going off of that, because we didn't know exactly what the last float was, so we were confused. We're like, is the parade still going? Are they done? Because we could see down at the light, they're like, okay, well, there's a float, but there's the 2 police cars and the fire truck. We're like, are they done? Are they going? Because then
Yeah.
as soon as the parade's over, the roads go back open, but then not everybody knows that, and pedestrians start walking across, not following traffic laws, and because we were all confused looking around like, are the roads open? Are they supposed to go back to normal traffic laws? Like, there was a bit confusion in that aspect.
Yeah, so there's still plenty of opportunities for education. I think one of the other things, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about it with respect to Sizzle, but going back to the 4th of July, is that I think we did a better job communicating information prior to Sizzle than we did for the 4th. Just the way that the information was shared, meaning there was basically the know before you go video, which was done before the 4th. And maybe there just wasn't enough. Maybe we needed to like really supplement that with more information. So like I said, education for those who are participating, but also education for those who are trying to kind of help manage it as well. Anyway, so those are just some thoughts. Just
Yeah, and if
reactions,
that's the
comments.
worst that happened, then we had a pretty successful
Yeah.
parade.
Mhm. We'll take it, that's for sure. So I think we did a pretty good job we did get the traffic off of Cherry Street this year, so that I think worked out pretty well. Again, we do have some pinch points when they turn at Cherry and Granville. That is still a tight spot. And I think it got tight down here on Vernon, didn't as well. That's where you were. So yeah, even though they aren't turning, it does.
Kind of just scooching in. Everybody kept kind of scooching in, and I kept having to remind them to step back, but they kept crowding. So
Yeah.
it's fine.
I think I mentioned this when we talked about this briefly before, but I think having the cones out did help. My kids and the kids around us minded better because it was giving them, hey, back behind the cones. And you'd have to chase them back a few times, but it helped. I thought it helped a lot. And I also appreciated that the red coats would come by and kick candy into the safe area too, so they didn't tend to run out as bad. So at least over here at Cherry Street where I was, I felt like I didn't see anything too bad as far as kids running out.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think they actually had more red vests, red coats out this year than I remember in the past couple of years. There might be more efficient ways for us to get the candy out of the street with a real broom as opposed to kicking at it.
Yeah. I love the idea of people running down the street with brooms. So that's,
Yeah.
I think.
So. Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So
Well, I just want to say thank you to all I know, like, that was a collaborative effort with staff and emergency and civic. And you really worked on that. It's really an all year round thing that you guys are keeping in the back of your head. So that doesn't go unnoticed that we have all these groups of folks working together. So I appreciate that. Okay,
So
then Sizzle is, it starts on page 8 of your packet.
So again, the event was a huge success. Several of the people in the working group mentioned that it was the best year yet, despite the extreme heat. The band was phenomenal. There was a great sense of teamwork across all the departments and volunteers. People were helping out, even if it wasn't their like assigned duty or what they were originally supposed to be doing. The event information was also very widely shared on social media. Each section of the event, so like beer garden or the kids zone, had its own flyer. There was a lot of cross sharing between the pages and different platforms and consistent reminders, which helped a lot with the public awareness. From a safety standpoint, the police received no complaints. They only had positive things to say regarding the event. There were no issues at the end of the night during the teardown process. The private security team that was hired for the beer garden, they were very proactive, maintained good communication during the event. They didn't have any visible identification, which we would have liked, but Their presence was very clearly known.
You're gonna miss them.
There's no missing them. The expanded beer garden was also very well received. It really allowed for the space to be opened up more, people to sit down while enjoying the bands. There were some issues with outside beverages being brought into the beer garden, even though we had signage. We had one incident where someone entered in with a glass beer bottle that they got from a nearby business, but that was quickly rectified. It didn't happen again. The rides were also a major hit. People commented on how new and well maintained they looked. There was also consistent lines throughout the night, so it was very steady flow throughout the entire duration. We also had great participation from local sponsors and youth sports teams who set up tents and kids activities. So even while there was no vendors, there still was like tents and places to like people to talk to as well. And that was also a big success. So we're hoping for next year to expand on that and get even more groups involved in that aspect.
Yeah, so one thing that's in the report that we didn't mention or that you did mention is trash. It sounds like, this year actually, we didn't have the dumpsters on the street. No,
Yeah, we did.
We did. It's yeah, you're
It
right,
was
sorry.
the-
It was the other event where they weren't on the street. One of the questions was maybe could we move one of them to this end of the event? So it's a little closer to the beer garden, maybe just a little easier to kind of clean up. It also would provide security.
I was just gonna say that would play double.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Obviously we used the Meridian barricades that we got from the city of Delaware this year. It definitely provided additional security. It actually also kind of opened it up a little bit so people could kind of see
Mhm.
what's happening as well. But that said, the service team, I think, would like to do a little bit more down near the kids zone and not just up near the beer garden. I mean, there were vehicles down there to kind of block, but most of the emphasis was kind of up here near the beer garden.
Just curious, did we borrow those or rent them?
We borrowed them. So they got them through a grant agreement with a requirement to share with other jurisdictions if they're not using them. So
Did they bring them to us or did we go get them?
we had to go get them from them.
That was just interesting.
Yeah. No, it's good. They're expensive. But I did
It's
tell
nice to
Jake.
shared.
Yeah, I did tell Jake,
It's a nice
maybe
effort.
we look into a grant to see if we can't get a few, maybe if nothing else to block off maybe one street. We got more than we would have, we got 20 or 25, something like that.
The process for borrowing those, like, was it something that, we learned a lot, or was it like, okay, it was fine, we figured it out?
Yeah, I think it was relatively simple. There's an application form that you fill out. Jake did that, submitted it. He's got good relationships with the folks down in the city of Delaware. So he knew immediately who to go to, get the application filled out, submitted. I don't think he thought it was cumbersome in any way.
So we'd be quick to use them again
Yeah,
if we would need them for another
I
event.
think we would definitely want to do that again.
Okay.
And they learned, I think we were a little concerned about how difficult it was going to be to get them set. But for the most part, I think the service team thought that wasn't as hard as we thought it was going to be. Plus, we also then there was a way for us to move them if we had to, which is one of the requirements of the fire department, is to make sure that, if they needed to get through, it's unlikely they would have gotten through where the Meridians were located. But if we had them on a street, they're not that difficult to move. They're a little tricky, to kind of place them back down. You want to be paying attention, otherwise it'll flip you right on over. But or hit you in the mouth, which you really don't want that to happen. But again, yeah, I think we would definitely look to use those again. So, yeah, we did. One other thing that you may have noticed this year is we did end up with the. So the beer wagons block the street, which I think we've done in the past as well. We didn't get them moved on Friday night or Saturday night though. Ended up moving them Saturday morning. That did impact some of the businesses on particularly the donut shop.
Sunday morning or Saturday morning?
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning.
Because they weren't moved out on Sunday night. So
Saturday.
we couldn't, on Saturday night. So we couldn't open it up first thing Sunday morning when the cleaning crew came in. And we did try to get access for them on this end of the street, and we did. But again, that's something we just gotta kind of work with. What happened is the skid steer, whatever, they didn't have the key or didn't have access to, I don't know, something like that. But anyway, we got it moved.
So there was a beer truck to get beer on Vernon Street and then on the square.
We also did have one on the square as well.
Okay.
So,
And how did that?
I don't think we had any issues with that.
No,
one
There
necessarily.
wasn't really like
The second one, I think, opened later,
It
right?
did.
So when they started running out of that one, they opened the other one up to everybody and had us start pushing them. But we were there pretty much the whole night serving tickets and there wasn't.
They didn't open the one on the square until probably like way later in the night.
So the one on Cherry Street or Vernon Street serviced most
Yeah,
of
most
them.
of them. Yeah, it did. So. Yeah, I think we did have some portable lighting.
Was nice.
Yeah, I think which definitely helped. We'll probably talk a little bit about maybe getting just a little bit more lighting in the back end here of the beer garden. But that was a nice addition. We did also have one for the kids, which was a pretty high powered light addition. Anyway, just trying to kind of sort through that a little bit more.
Rides look great.
Yeah, they did.
Mhm.
They absolutely looked great. And they were fun. Kids had a good time with them, for sure.
My kids missed the toxic meltdown. They didn't have that one. This was my first year in, I don't know how many years, a lot of years that I didn't volunteer. I just came as a resident. And I had family in town. That's why I didn't volunteer. And so it was unique to come from a resident's point of view. And I felt like the beer garden being open really relaxed the feel of like you're not so tight and cramped and close with everybody when it's 250 degrees outside.
Yeah.
I felt like it was just more relaxed in general, and I felt like there was still so much fun happening outside the beer garden too, that really you could just do what felt right for your family and you were having fun. So, and I think I know that the Civic worked really well with their folks that were like, they weren't vendors, but like the sports teams and stuff. Like I received that feedback, like, that they jumped right in and were helping with setup and helping with cleanup and, offering, whatever assistance, like just everyone just worked really well together. And I really liked having that added security. They were tough. My mom didn't bring her ID. They didn't let her in. So the beer garden. So they were tough. I told my mom 100 times, bring your ID. She didn't
They
listen.
wouldn't let me in one year.
Yeah, I mean, they are.
They wouldn't let me in. Like they stopped me because I didn't have. I was
Yeah,
like,
same.
yeah. I wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, but also like I wasn't gonna mess with those guys. Like, I mean, I'm probably gonna mess with Dave Martin over one of those GI Joe guys. So I think it was such a successful event, and I'm just really proud of the Civic Association and the staff, just everybody coming together and making it really probably one of the best sizzles that we've had. And it's okay to change things. It's okay to improve things. And I think they did that and staff did that, and it was a great.
So one other thing, I think Damon, you had this issue last year, the shuttles. Now that they had 4 as opposed to 2 running. I haven't heard a whole lot of feedback other than it seemed to work better, but I don't know if you.
We did not, okay, so the problem we had last year was the shuttle never came.
Right.
But this year, we definitely had to wait. So we got on at the Sunbury Meadows pool.
Yeah.
Which is a convenient stop, but we had to wait like 2 shuttles to get on because they'd come in and they were packed already. So, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's probably just what it is and you have to deal with it. But that was the only like downside to it. I thought it worked fine. They came on time. It was fast in between the shuttles. So yeah.
Was it Delaware Transit?
So 2 of the buses were Delaware Transit, and then 2 of them were Eagle Transport or something like that. So next year, I think they're working out a deal with Delaware Transit to be the sole provider. So
Did they donate that?
they were one of the sponsors. I don't know if
They were
it
a
was,
sponsor.
yeah, so either it was deeply discounted, or it was provided, free of charge, but I don't know exactly.
Okay, I
Which
thought I had heard that and I was like, that's incredible. I obviously live too close to get a shuttle, so I didn't even see them, but I had heard that and I was like, even if it's discounted, I mean, that even if not, like, it's great to include them and get
Yes.
them out in Sunbury.
Exactly. Yep.
I'm in favor of the tow truck. If you have to get a tow truck next year to move the cars that are illegally parked, by gosh, move them.
Yeah, I always I worry mostly about trying to get Columbus Street cleared because the rides show up about whatever, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And, it's just, there's a lot still happening. There's a lot of issues on Verdon as well, but that's going to be closed later and we can kind of deal with that. Anyway, we ended up with one car down here. We just could not
Ticket 'em.
find.
Ticket them.
It wasn't making any sense. It ended up being a little old lady who was getting her nails done. The nail salon. And we knocked on that door and nobody answered. So, I mean, we just didn't realize that anybody was there. So anyway, it still worked out fine.
And
got her nails
maybe
done and she-
that we add that to our more information.
Yes,
For
yes.
next year, like we were talking about with, the 4th of July, maybe we add that, like, no, for real, this at 3 o'clock. No parking or whatever. But you did, I mean, you had those signs out like a few days before, right? I mean,
We
there's only so much you can do if a little old lady's getting her nails done, then that's what happens.
that is what happens.
Okay.
All right.
I don't see any visitors. Was there anything, Damon, did you want to share anything?
I just give a quick update and I won't go into too much detail, but I've been meeting with the planning committee for the Veterans Memorial, the Lost but Not Forgotten. It is and I don't say this to be a negative thing, it is a more involved process than I anticipated it was going to be. So we're in the middle of decision making still. Budget has become a concern. Size of the eventual memorial has become a bit of a concern too. So we are working on it. I think one of the things, and I've talked with you a little bit about this, Daryl. I think one of the things that might be helpful as we move forward in deciding what part of this we end up with in Sunbury is to specifically identify the areas we're looking at and what the dimensions of those areas are. Because we've got some of the ideas that were pitched were like a 30-foot circle, which I don't know how many, I'm sure we could fit it somewhere, but I don't know exactly where that would go. Probably not on the square or at the corner green space there. So
Or at
that'd
the
be.
cemetery or at the, like something like that
Right.
we were thinking.
Right, and I know we were waiting to see what would come up as a decision first before the location, but it might actually be that the two go hand in hand a little bit as to what the eventual decision is. Because one of the things that we're trying to focus on is making the three similar but have distinctive features at the same time. So having a little bit of knowledge of what spaces we have with the sizes of those space would probably help.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so Alyssa, maybe you and I and Cynthia can work together on getting a map of the locations, but also the dimensions.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would.
So it's kind of a preliminary. I mean, ultimately,
We're still talking to the artists that pitched their ideas. We haven't made any decisions yet. Like I said, we're talking budget right now is a big thing. And the goal is to have it done by Veterans Day 2026, which is a lofty goal with it being not too far from Veterans Day 2025.
that is true.
Yeah.
That is true. Okay. That's a great update. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else from the committee? Anything else from staff? I will make a motion to adjourn,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Capel. Discussion, roll call?
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Capel?
Yes.
Ms. Strayer?
Yes.
3 yeas, we are adjourned.